Wild Health is about optimizing you. We use genomics, blood work, biometrics, microbiome assessment, many other tests, and a conversation with you to come up with a full health optimization plan. What's the perfect diet, exercise, and supplement plan for you and only you? The Wild Health podcast is about optimizing all of us. Here we cover the cutting-edge science that gives you the base to be able to apply the personalized plan we give you as a patient. To sign up as a patient, go to wildhealth.com. Or if you're a physician or health coach and you want to learn how to do this for your patients, we're happy to help as well. Wildhealth.com for all the information on becoming a patient or working with us.
All right. Well, we are here today on the Wild Health podcast. I am one of the Wild Health physicians, Dr. Julie Fouché, and I'm here with Will Moorad, professional CrossFit Games athlete. He's headed back to his 5th games this August in just a few short weeks. And he's also been using Wild Health this season to help optimize his performance and his health. So thanks so much for joining me today, Will.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, I'm excited because I think, we've never really spent time together. We've never really chatted, but I know our careers just barely overlapped. I think your first CrossFit Games was 2014, which was my last CrossFit Games. And you've had really 2 careers since then in CrossFit. So I'm excited just to hear more of your story and your experience. But I mean, maybe we can just start with what your background was prior to CrossFit and how you got into CrossFit. I know you were a soccer player. That's really, I think, the things that I knew about you from the Central East was like, there's this new guy who played soccer and now he's really good at CrossFit.
Yeah. So I kind of used CrossFit to supplement my soccer career from like 2007. Once I signed like a letter of intent and was going to go play college soccer, I was working at a fitness, essentially like a Lifetime Fitness here in Nashville. All my buddies in high school who were also going to play college sports, we all kind of were just like, oh, let's make some money and work at this place and we can work out for free.
Sounds like a great job.
Yeah, it was awesome. So this was our senior year, and one of the trainers there was a CrossFit guy. And he didn't really, he saw us working out and we didn't really know what we were doing. We were just kind of like doing bench and the pull-ups or the pull-up machine and all that stuff. And he was like, hey, why don't you guys come try this stuff out? And we started doing some intervals. And I think Angie was our first workout we did, like the 100.
Yeah.
And it kind of caught my attention. I was like, oh, this stuff's working. I could see how my performance on like the soccer field was improving. So I just ran with it. And throughout my college career, at least in the off seasons, I would always come back to CrossFit and like just do Olympic lifting. And Murph was like always a preseason test I used. No
Nice.
weight vest, but it was just like a good like 35-minute rip for a soccer player. And then so I had a good career at Belmont University, which is a school in Nashville. I had an opportunity to go play pro soccer in a few different organizations. So I actually took off my senior spring, left school.
Wow.
And pursued that career, did the combines and all that stuff. And when that fizzled, I went back to school just to finish my degree. I was studying exercise science at the time and started doing CrossFit to kind of scratch the itch of I was 21 and just a young man who liked to work out. And I'd been following the CrossFit Games, watching the 2011 games on my laptop at the time. And I was like, oh, this seems pretty cool. And Rich and Easy and Dan were all in Cookeville. So to get my scholarship back, I was a GA for the strength and conditioning department. So
cool.
I would go to class, I'd coach some teams. And Easy was actually, I don't know if he remembers this, but he was applying to be a GA as well. And he was at Belmont one time.
No way.
Meeting with the strength coach. And he was like, hey, you doing CrossFit? I was doing double unders in the hallway. And I was like, yeah, man. And Easy was one of the guys back then. Right? So I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. So small little side story there. But yeah, so then in 2013, I ended up qualifying for regionals and doing pretty well. Central East, we were pretty good athletes.
Very,
And,
very competitive for the men,
know,
especially. Yes. It's
yeah,
crazy how there's such a concentration of, I guess it's really Tennessee and Ohio. There was just such an epicenter of
yeah.
great male athletes.
Still. I mean, well, Saxon, Scott's brother, moved down here, so he's actually lives like a mile
Oh, all
away
right. You're
from me
bringing them
now.
all to Tennessee
Yeah,
now.
everybody's coming to Tennessee now. But yeah, so had a regional in Columbus where we lunged on the concrete floors and and was like, man, maybe I could be all right at this. Like five of the top 10 guys in the world, or like four of the top five guys in the world were from our region. And I finished like 10th or 11th that year and had just been doing it competitively for like a couple months. So I committed the whole next year. I coached full time at a gym and just trained and ended up punching my ticket to the games in 14 and kind of made it a career, signed with Reebok and a supplement sponsor. And that was it. Off to
The
the
rest is
races.
history, right?
Yeah, the rest is
Well, it
crazy.
is. It's totally crazy, right? And then how
Yeah,
your life just changed so much
yeah,
from that one season. But obviously, the Central East was tough, like you said. A
yeah,
high concentration of the top athletes in the world were in that region, and at the time, it was usually only the top, 4 or 5 who could qualify to the
yeah.
games every year.
Three the first year or the first two
Yeah,
years I competed, and then like this whole super regional thing happened. But
yeah. So then the next couple seasons you just narrowly miss, and sometimes it was
mm,
by like less than a second, which is
yeah,
so crazy.
it still stings.
Totally, totally. How do you, I mean, I see, my sense of you is that you have this kind of optimism and always see the glass half full, but I mean, experience like that has to be hard. How did you process through that and then continue to have the drive to keep going and not get discouraged being in such a tough region?
Yeah. So, what's your career, first off? So it's like you got to keep working even if you're sick or it's not like you don't make a sale or whatever your job is. So yeah, I think 15 I had a fractured first rib at the regional actually, which was kind of
Oh,
like
wow.
we had the snatch, we had the handstand push up or the handstand walk, we had
Yeah.
the overhead squats. I mean, you were banged up at that one too, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it was a rough
And
one.
yeah, rough one. A little worse than me, but yeah. So like I had that, and I think I was at peace with kind of like, okay, well, I finished seventh that year, and was totally in like I was messed up, right?
Mm,
So you kind of like give yourself a rest. You're kind of like, that sucks. Like I didn't accomplish my goal and like to compete with the best in the world again. But injuries happen. And then in 16, where I was like probably the fittest I had been in my life up until that point, uh, and I just like had a rough weekend and I finished sixth and barely missed. It was like a second, like you said. And that stuck with me. Like I would wake up in the middle of the night, like it was bad, like PTSD almost, because
yeah.
it's like everything, your whole
You put
identity.
everything into it. Yeah.
Yeah, and that stuck with me for a while, probably like 3 or 4 months, where I was just like, I kept training and stuff, but it was like the sleeping and like waking up. You would like wake up and like you had done the workout, even though it was in the past, and you're like, wait. Anyways,
Dreaming about
so
it.
yeah,
Yeah.
dreaming about
Totally.
it, and you kind of when you're a pro athlete, like it is everything, and it's so consuming. So yeah, I think it was just like dust yourself off and keep going. I've always been like that, like that strive gene in me, if that's a thing, right? Is it's just really strong. I've been an athlete my whole life. I've always just been competitive. I was the baby, or am the baby in the family, and it's like
You
sink or
probably
swim.
lost a lot of battles there as a little
Oh
kid, and
yeah,
you just got used
yeah.
to keep going no matter what.
Yeah, exactly. Like just dust yourself off and keep going.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then in like 17, obviously I was
Yeah,
making the
that
push
was a great.
again, and then I had the whole kidney failure and then misdi or diagnosis, turned out misdiagnosis with the kidney disease, which
Yeah, we
retired
have
me
to
for
we have
two
to back up and
years.
talk about that one.
Yeah,
This is a
sorry.
big
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So tell us about, so you just, you're getting over 2016 and the waking up just thinking about it, and you're going
Yeah.
into the 2017 season. And so you go into Wadapalooza, which is one of the marquee events outside of the games season. Usually it's held in January in Miami. And tell us what happens.
Yeah, so I'd had a great prep. The year prior, I had podium there. So just good memories in Miami. And I did the first event. It was assault on Fran, which is like heavy thrusters and echo bike or assault bike, one of the air bikes.
It sounds awful.
Yeah, just like a really hard output, like anaerobic power, just painful workout and tough on your kidneys. And I ended up getting really sick after that event. And I've never gotten sick. I've been a high level athlete my whole life and never like gotten actually sick from a workout.
You mean like vomiting?
Vomiting,
Yeah.
delirious, things like that, which was very strange for me. So that happened. And I just kind of like dusted myself off and like sat in a lounge chair for 5 hours between events.
As a side note, you just made me think of this. The only time I've ever gotten sick also as an athlete in all of the years was after a bike thruster workout.
There you go.
But it was at the Rogue Invitational just a couple years ago when I was not in shape and I was on Rich Froning's team. And so I pushed myself way too hard and got sick afterwards.
I was 2021.
Yeah, 2021. Yeah.
Yeah, in Austin. Yeah, I was there for that. I didn't know you were getting sick though.
But I mean, I just did after the workout a little bit. It was not like a
just
kidney
a
injury, delirium, anything. I was just threw up a little bit.
Yeah,
did not feel well.
Not good. And to this day, that's still the only time it's happened. So yeah. So I had that, and then I went and I did the second event Friday night. It was like a rope climb, double under thing, and just didn't feel great. So I went to bed, and I ended up waking up 2-3 a.m. and just felt like my back and like my sides were on fire. Like the best way I can describe it is like an iron like on your back. And my wife's a nurse, and she was cardiac step down at that point, like ICU nurse. So I just woke her up and was like, "Hey, I'm like not feeling good. Like something's wrong." And I'd had back injuries in the past, and just you get weird nerve stuff sometimes. And she was like, "Maybe it's just that. Like, let's see if we can go back to bed and see how you're feeling in the morning." It was bad enough for me to wake her up, which is like not normal.
That's usually saying something, especially for a guy.
Yeah. So I woke up and like normal routine, made my breakfast, made some coffee, and I took one sip of coffee and immediately went to the restroom and like started vomiting again. And my wife was like, "Hey, this is not normal." And of course I was like, "Nah, like let me call Max." I was working with Max Elhaj, the TTT owner at the time, and he's like, "Hey man, I agree. Like you need to probably go to the hospital. Like your wife's a nurse. Like she probably knows more than both of us." And so I went, and they did all my blood work. And at this point, like I hadn't used the bathroom. I couldn't pee, like nothing, which was weird, right? Like everything was shutting down, but it just like the pressure builds up. Talking to a doctor, like the pressure builds up, and I felt like I was gonna pop, but like I couldn't like pee or anything. So they did all the labs, and they were like, "Hey, you're in kidney failure. Like this is like my GFR was like, I think at the time it was like 20 something, and then my creatinine was like 4 point something, which is like not good. And then it actually obviously got worse as I stayed. They were like, "We're admitting you," and like put me on an IV and all that stuff. And I just was like,
scary.
bed
It can
rest.
be right if you hadn't gone to the hospital or you wait too long. It can have some really life-threatening consequences.
Yeah, so I guess at the worst it was like, I think I had like 14 or 13 GFR and like a 5.8 or something creatinine, which is like almost dialysis, I think. Which I don't know, you could speak to that better, but that's just kind of what they told me. They're like, "Hey, you're like right on this needs to start turning." And luckily it did, but during that, it's a slow healing. It's almost like muscle soreness when I try to like over a longer period of time, like you get sore and then you slowly get better, and there you go.
Takes a lot of time. Yeah. Wow.
Takes a lot of time. So they ended up, my doctor wanted to do a biopsy of my kidney or my kidneys, because he was like, "This is odd." And I guess the pathology report had suggested that I had this autoimmune disorder called IgA nephropathy, which, as you know, like is a progressive kidney disease that can cause kidney failure or progressive kidney, I guess, lowers your function over any amount of time. It can be really aggressive, or it can be like a slow, steady thing. Regardless, he said, hey, probably isn't the best idea to be a pro athlete. It's tough on your
Wow.
kidneys. You're a 27-year-old man. Like,
Yeah.
you want to have kids and have a long, healthy life, you need to make lifestyle changes. So in
Wow.
that moment, I just made the decision and just stepped away from the sport.
That's wild. So going into a season, you feel really good. You're starting to go into 2017 games season, and then you pull out of the competition with this severe, medical situation, and in the same span of time also decide, okay, my CrossFit Games career is going to end right now.
Totally. Yeah. Like,
That's
kind of
wild.
just was at peace with that place. Like, I had a relatively successful athletic career up to that point in my life. And I was like, maybe this is just it. Like, it was a good run. And now I need to focus on being healthy and just find a new career. And I owned a gym at the time, and we sold that. And I had a member who owned a tech business and gave me a junior consulting sales role.
Okay.
So I just started working in corporate America, and like right off
Totally
the
different.
rip,
Yeah.
totally different. Like, especially the tech world versus the pro athlete world. I don't know if you've seen the show Silicon Valley, but those were like my coworkers. And I mean,
Very different
sales,
experience.
yeah, like sales is cool for me because I can talk to people and like that's not a problem, but it was just a learning experience to say the least.
Totally.
So I
Totally.
did learn a lot of valuable lessons there just about how the corporate world
Sure.
works, and I got to travel internationally for business, which was really cool. And um yeah, but throughout that time I was obviously getting my kidneys checked up as anybody would. And uh in my last visit with Dr. Shonda, who's a nephrologist here in Nashville, he wanted, like, my levels were great, like no signs of any issues, and he was like, hey, let's like look at these pathology reports. And he kind of more or less said, hey, like sometimes those don't tell the full story, right? Your body's in so much trauma. You can suggest that maybe one thing is what the cause is, but there's also a chance that that's not it.
Sometimes you don't know.
And
Yeah.
sometimes you don't know. So he was kind of like, look, I think you're fine. Obviously don't go back to what you were doing. Like, as far as health goes, I need to like get a nutritionist and check my blood work, and don't take all these NSAIDs and stuff like that. But he said, if you can do it the right way, then you could probably return to sport. So I made all
Wow.
those very measured adjustments and kind of just went from there, and ended up going back to the games in 19. And obviously 2020, the season was more or less canceled. And then every year after that, we've made it back. So
On a
I
great
think,
run.
yeah, on a great
That's
run.
so looking back, they think that it was some combination of being on NSAIDs. Sounds like you were taking a lot of NSAIDs at the time with the intense training you were doing, and maybe dehydration or something that was kind of like
Yeah.
the perfect storm for you to go into that kidney failure.
Yeah.
So how did that, well, one, can you just talk a little bit about that? Like how the NSAIDs, and then how you changed things when you went back. You said, okay, I love how you also just made the decision. Okay, I'm ready to leave. And then when you can go back, you're like, okay, I'm doing this. I'm all
Yeah.
in. But how it had to have been different, right? Because you said you wanted to be more mindful and make sure that you were protecting your kidneys and your health overall. So what were the changes that you made at that point, just to make sure that you were doing things in a healthier way?
Yeah. So a lot of things, and even just not just like diet changes and making sure I was hydrating, no NSAIDs. I stopped drinking coffee for a period of time because there's
Wow.
like a lot of things, like just anything to be healthy.
Yeah.
And which I kind of like have to be that way to like make the game. So it's just kind of the way I am. But
Totally.
uh, yeah, so even from a training, I think the biggest thing was the way I digested my training, because that I had a bad experience, or just my body had a bad memory of going that hard. So I almost was reluctant to push myself to that place that
Yeah.
is necessary to go to the CrossFit Games.
Yeah.
And you have to do that a lot. So I talked to Max and we made a plan, and he was even hesitant because he was like, look, this guy's willing, obviously his nutrition and stuff wasn't the best, but he's willing to push himself to the point of his body's shutting down. And do I
Literally
want
shutting
to
down. Yeah.
help guide that? Because that was like one of my best friends, and he's like, I don't want Will to like hurt himself and ruin his
Sure.
life and all these things, which is like a commendable thing. But
Right. Cares
but
about you.
he cares about me. So it was a delicate process, and it was a lot of me mentally like getting over little hurdles. Like, okay, I'm gonna push myself to be like laying on the floor today. And
A
I
little bit
can
harder every
a
time.
little bit harder, a little bit harder, and that took a bit of time.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Because just like that metabolic feeling is, I mean, you get it. Like it's stressful, it hurts. It's close to like that kidney situation, same feeling ish, like your body's just burning. And so I had another like PTSD kind of thing I had to
Yeah.
work through. And
I'm sure every
yeah, I
time you
mean,
feel like that lactic acid building up in your muscles, or you feel that, you have that worry in the back of your head, like, are my kidneys okay?
yeah, I had that. Now like now
Now
I'm
you're
much
good.
more aware. Yeah, and it's it's been a lot better, right? I work with Wild Health, I get regular blood
Yeah.
work. Like there's just a lot more things that I have given to professionals to help guide, and then I take those professional opinions or suggestions and apply them. And if they work, they work. If they don't, they don't. And we kind of just rinse, repeat. And I've been relatively healthy from an internal like standpoint. Obviously, you're gonna have mechanical issues like sore shoulders or knees or whatever it is. That's just kind of the part of the
Sure.
game. But as far as returning to training, those are big things, right? Nutrition, understanding the training protocols we're using a bit better, which that process actually gave me a really intimate understanding of what my body can handle and how I recover and things like that. And that's still something I'm always evolving. To do
Absolutely.
something. I mean, I'm 34 years old and I'm still competing with the best in the world. And that's kind of like uncharted territory a little bit in our sport. Like how long can you keep stay at the top of the mountain? And I think that this on a deeper level has like helped me express like an innovation that's in me as far as I want to be the gray head. Like I want to be the old guy that keeps coming back. Like, and that takes innovation. And I like tinkering. I obviously I speak with health professionals. We change my training a little bit. And I think that there is something that I like about that. I like just want to get the absolute most out of me as an athlete. And obviously I've learned a lot, just Will as a man and a human on this journey. But
Totally.
yeah, I think that all of this has kind of helped me just innovate and evolve and learn how important that is just to
Totally.
stay relevant.
Yeah. I'd love to hear about anything you're willing to share about your experience with Wild Health. Like what intrigued you to start the process, and anything, if you can just share about your experience or anything that's helped, this season.
Yeah, definitely. So I had like obviously through the kidney thing and all of that, I had become aware of the like my labs and what good
Yeah.
numbers look like and how diet can change those. And I had been doing that type of thing a few years prior to working with Wild Health. And then I was talking to a nutritionist of mine that works with a few other athletes that work with you guys. And I was like, hey, I think I want to get some blood work so we can dial in my nutrition a little bit better this year and every year, right? Just this
Right.
evolution thing that I'm
Constant
talking
improvement.
about. And I talked to one of my training partners, B, that works with y'all, and she's like, hey, I'm actually doing that. And I was like, oh, perfect. So I got hooked up with you guys. We did my initial lab draw. We had a consult that kind of helped. Hey, maybe we can change this little thing in your diet, or maybe take this supplement to help with inflammation markers. which is more and more important when you want to keep competing. And the older you get, you just clear
That's right.
inflammation a little slower. So
The little things make a big difference.
yeah, so we changed a lot of those things,
Mm-hmm.
like fish oils, taking magnesium before I go to bed, like just things that help expedite recovery and
Mm-hmm.
lower inflammation, just make me a healthier vessel.
Mm-hmm.
And and it's been really helpful. I mean, obviously, this is probably the least banged up I've been, and I'm not like just selling y'all. The least banged up I've been in a few years, and I think from like definitely like just a general well-being, sleep quality standpoint, has to do with the recommendations
Mm-hmm.
that Wild Health gave me. Even the checkups, like if I'll have like Steve is the guy I just have my calls with, and
Mm-hmm.
I just have any questions, I can just text him. Like I didn't really necessarily have, just talking about sleep, I didn't have like a tough time getting to sleep. It was staying
Mm-hmm.
asleep. And like there's like little things like that where I'm like, hey man, like, what do you think about this? Nothing crazy. Like I'm still performing well, but how do I tighten this up? And he'll give me a
Sure.
suggestion like that. So I just really like the team, like culture, if you
Mm-hmm.
will,
Mm-hmm.
that Wild Health has provided me. It's just like there to help. And obviously
Totally.
we have the hard data of blood work and labs and all this stuff and what I'm eating. And then we also have like the little things, like if I'm not sleeping well, or if my training volume goes up, what can we adjust
Mm-hmm.
to make sure that I don't like get lackadaisical with my recovery? It's just like kind of an all encompassing service that I just really value. And I wish that I had that earlier in my career, to be honest. I mean, but I
Me
guess like,
too.
yeah, like it's such a good tool that just makes your job easier, which
Mm-hmm.
you can't deny.
Totally. Totally. And I think your point about it's usually it's not usually one big thing. It's the combination of a bunch of little things and all the little things that you became a more aware of and started changing after your kidney injury and then
Hmm.
now are constantly on that pursuit of like what are the little less than 1% things that I can change. It's, how can I make my sleep a little bit better? What supplements can I
Absolutely.
take? And it's cool to see that not only now you're probably a much better athlete, like, physically, mentally, but, not where I think of you in 2017, if you were taking a bunch of NSAIDs all the time, obviously that meant you had a lot of inflammation and you were in a lot of
Yeah.
pain. And so now it's the combination of being more in tune with your training, and what you're doing physically, but also how you're supporting those other aspects from nutrition to sleep and recovery and supplements and things like that. So that's super cool.
Yeah. I think like it's a maturity, I think, like, and obviously this is such an amazing tool for me,
Mm-hmm.
because it kind of takes care of all of
Mm-hmm.
like the stuff under the hood that is very important. But the maturity to allow myself to evolve, or allow myself to listen to experts,
Mm-hmm.
because I think especially when you get like confirmation bias as a young athlete and you
Mm-hmm.
have success early and you just want to do the same thing over and over and over.
Yeah.
And I could not do the same thing when I was 27. It's just not sustainable. So
Yeah.
just having I guess it's the maturity or just the growth to kind of let other people help direct,
Mm-hmm.
and let things happen more naturally. But your body gives you feedback. Like,
Totally. You got to listen to
yeah,
it
you gotta listen.
though.
So maybe it's
That's
just
right.
that.
That's right. It's cool. I always like to think about too, what are the silver linings? And I'm sure you've wondered, like, what if that hadn't happened in 2017 and you had just continued to beat yourself up for a few more years? Would you have ever gone back to the games, or would you have ever done as well? Like right now, today, sitting here in 2023, would you be in as great of a position as you are, or would it be different because of that wake up call to say, hey, I need to pay attention to my labs and my nutrition and,
Yeah,
all these other things that as a young athlete, you don't often have to pay attention to because your body is so resilient and you are going to continue to thrive and improve.
yeah. It's easy, right? Like it comes easy, and it's when things get hard that it's the real test of professionalism,
Mm-hmm.
or you know circumstances a lot too, right? Like I have been around, like I got hooked up with Wild Health through a friend. Like that's nice. Um, I have
Mm-hmm.
really great healthcare in Nashville. So like I think it is circumstance a little
Totally.
bit, and I've been fortunate to just be around the right people at the right time to help,
Mm-hmm.
serve my career.
Yeah,
But um, yeah, just got to keep evolving, I suppose, and
totally.
put the right people in your corner.
Totally. How do you think that time away from competing, obviously it then led to a lot of these things in terms of improving your training and your overall health long term, but how do you think it improved your mentality? Like you said, as a professional athlete, it becomes so much of your identity. And I'm sure that was a big shift for you, going
Yeah.
away and then coming back. But how has it made you sort of mentally stronger or just better as a person in general?
Yeah, I think I just appreciate it more. Like
Mm.
being being a human is a sprint, right? It's a short time we're here. But
Yeah.
like being a pro athlete is just even a glitch, like a little blip on the radar. And I just allowed sport to be, it was too much. It stressed me out. Obviously, I was like just doing anything to stay on the floor and abusing myself. And that
Mm-hmm.
caused stress and in an unhealthy way, obviously. And now when you go through something like that, it provides perspective. And I think I really, now more than ever, I've just leaned on these tough moments to learn
Mm-hmm.
because they are great teaching opportunities. Anything hard we go through, name it, you
Mm-hmm.
can absorb it and it can be really bad. And it can
Mm-hmm.
be a spiraling effect of just negativity and no growth. Or, I mean, I'm not saying ignore emotion, but, or it can be a positive thing. And obviously, like that was a tough mental time for
Mm-hmm.
me, but it was an opportunity to grow. And I think that's the way I spun it when the doctor said, "Hey, you can go back to sport." I was like,
Mm-hmm.
well, this is a second opportunity. Like,
Yeah.
and I'm still young and I'm still passionate about sport. And I learned a lot from that first career, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
let's see if I can apply those lessons and do even better. And I've
Mm-hmm.
spun that kind of a headspace into a lot of hardship in my life. And uh, it doesn't make it better, but maybe it does make it better. I mean, I think if you can spin negativity into something positive to help you or help the people around you
Mm-hmm.
improve, then I think that's a good way of looking at it. It's a healthy way of looking
Mm-hmm.
at it, and it helps me. It's helped me help out friends or even
Mm-hmm.
acquaintances who have dealt with hardship and just try to spin these tough times into something positive for them. Which is something I like a lot in this point in my career. Like I like
Yeah.
sharing what I've learned. I like sharing the tricks of the trade. Like what's the point of me going through all these things and having relative success with it if I'm not going to share it and like help other people and enrich their lives and just if you can help somebody when they're down in the dumps, then they'll
Mm-hmm.
remember that you did them a solid and you spent the time to talk to them. And I've had so many messages on like social media and stuff, just people with kidney stuff or like my wife was sick last year, like
Yeah.
this is our situation. And like I think that's enriching. That gives me fulfillment just as much as making the CrossFit games, and maybe
Totally.
more, to be real. Like because that's being able to articulate your thoughts and
Mm-hmm.
help people work through their emotions is more lasting than like running around the Coliseum, which don't get me wrong
Right.
is awesome and I love
Still
it and
awesome.
it is so
Right.
awesome. It gives me
Still
goosebumps to
awesome.
think about it in a few weeks, but
Sure.
yeah, like I think I get fulfillment from helping, I guess, like sharing what I've learned through my experiences life with others. So
Absolutely. And I think that's such a key part of just the CrossFit community in general, right? Is we support each other, we lift each other up when we're going through a hard time, whether it's finishing last in a workout or you just are going through something tough. And so you have this big platform to be able to reach people, and you've gone through hard things, so people can relate to you when they're going through hard things and say, well, how does Will get through it and he's thriving now?
yeah.
So it's really cool to see you be so open with that and share. And I have to ask too, just about your wife's experience. So,
Yeah.
you said she was sick last year. She was diagnosed with cancer at the age
Yeah.
of 30, which is just crazy. And so I'd love to hear just a little bit about what that experience was like for the two of you, or has been like for the two of you, and how you've approached it. Because it's another, big adversity for both of
Yeah.
you at such a young age when it comes to health.
Yeah. Yeah. So right after the games in 21, um, she was diagnosed with breast cancer and
Mm-hmm.
started treatment right away. So she got the diagnosis maybe early September, and then like treatment was right after that. They just
Wow.
kind of like layer it in, and they're like, we just got to
Yeah.
get ahead of this. And that was that was very challenging, just on every aspect of life, right? Like emotionally, like we were planning on starting to have a family right after the
Yeah.
games, and then it was like, actually, you can do the exact opposite thing. And so we did all of, like, went through that just headspace, which was quick because we're like, well, no, we got to get her healthy. Like we got
Mm-hmm.
to
Yeah.
deal with the cancer first, and all the treatment plans and the surgeries and all these things. And
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, so we got right into that, and it was it's a another chance for perspective, and that was a much harder chance, or a harder dose of it, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
I could deal with my own stuff because it's me and I'm tough, and mine was very acute and in the nature of the sickness, and
Mm-hmm.
I got better quickly. Whereas in her case, obviously they were like, you should be okay based on the data, but you never
You
know,
never
right?
know. It's a scary
So
diagnosis, no matter what.
yeah, so we started the treatment plan, and um, she started responding well to the treatment plan like immediately, which was
Mm.
pretty amazing to see, like just how the medicine works. And
Mm-hmm.
um, about a year and a little over a year later, like through all the treatments and the surgeries, she's good. And uh, I I mean, I'm not gonna say we were like glad we had to go through that, because obviously that's horrible, and I'd love to never have done that. But
Mm-hmm.
the same thing for her. I've seen her, like all these people in the CrossFit community, which my wife is like she's not like Miss Social, right? Like she's kind of quiet, she does her thing, and she's a NICU nurse, so
Aw, yeah.
she's obviously a caring soul. And
Yeah.
um, but she's had a ton of people reach out to her, like, and
That's
just
amazing.
ask, and she's been amazing, like a light, I think, for those people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she worked through her whole treatment, which is
Oh,
pretty incredible. She urged me to continue to train throughout the whole year, which is another just kind of cool. She said, let's just keep life as normal as we can and train as much as you can. And obviously, like, I trained at home a lot more,
mm-hmm.
just because cancer treatment and chemo and all
Yeah.
these things they take over your life, and you need to be
Mm-hmm.
there to support, because it's
Mm-hmm.
just it's an ugly process. And um, yeah, we learned a lot, and we're so fortunate to have such great healthcare here in Nashville to help guide that treatment plan.
Mm-hmm.
And we're good now. I mean, she has to get like checkups. I think it's once a year now, just general stuff. I think she does blood work a little bit more frequently, just to make sure
Mm-hmm.
everything's in line. But yeah, it was a big punch in the face. But I think just the way we are, we kind of roll with the punches, and it could we're fortunate, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it's not that good for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But we obviously she was lucky to just crush it, and life was as good as I guess it could have been, considering all the stuff that
You
goes
had to
with
go
the
through.
cancer
Yeah.
treatment.
Yeah.
And the support we received, I think, was also just a boost, and not normal, I would say. Like the CrossFit community and things like that were huge. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that helps, like
It
all these
helps
complete
totally.
strangers were reaching out to her, and she's like, hey, like, look at this. And I'm like, hey, like, this is awesome. People care about you that don't even know you. And
Totally. How
that's a
cool is
pretty
that?
special experience.
Yeah,
in their
that's the
darkest
community that
time.
just says, hey, Will's wife, we got to support her and help out. And they
Yeah,
jump to it. That's amazing.
totally. So yeah, it was tough. That wasn't like the best year, but we made the most of it, and she's good now. So
Yeah. Well, I'm so
she's
glad
back to
she's doing
working,
well.
and
Yeah.
yeah, she's
I'm so
great.
glad she's doing well. And it sounds like you both just have such a resilient, strong attitude through all of these challenges. Has it changed for both of you over these last few years and going through each of your own health scares? Has that changed your perspective on thinking about your own health and longevity in any way, or whether it's your perspective or anything that you do differently in life?
Oh yeah, I think it's a real like reality check
Mm.
um, when you go through health scares, because you get one life and it's such a fragile thing,
Mm-hmm.
and it's kind of a blessing in a way to gain that perspective as a young person, because it's easier to correct an NSAID thing. Obviously, Cass's situation wasn't like something she did wrong. It was just like that happens sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
and like that sucks.
Mm-hmm.
But from my standpoint, in my situation, I just learned a bit more. I could undo the bad easier,
Mm-hmm.
as a 27-year-old. But I think even in her thing, like she was working night shift and stuff, and she was like, that's probably not the best. Shift work probably isn't the best. And she's like day shift and like a normal
Yeah.
adjustment. That's probably the biggest thing. I meing, we eat healthy, and
Mm-hmm.
obviously, like I have a whole doctor's team that works with me, and she has the same now. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, we're doing the little things that
Mm-hmm.
add up, that so we can live long, healthy
Yeah.
lives. God forbid we have another like situation like that, which isn't in our hands anyways. But
Mm-hmm.
everything that we just try to control the controllables, and um, then let the
Yeah.
cards fall, and I
Totally.
think that that's been big for us.
That's really cool. I think even the example about night shift is a great example, because how many people probably go through life knowing, doing anything, just knowing that it's probably not the best for my health, but it's just what I do and it's just like the situation that I'm in. And then when you have something that really shocks you like that or changes your
Hmm.
perspective, you might think differently about those things and say, oh, maybe it is in my control to change this.
Yeah.
Is something that is one of those controllables. So that's super cool. I know we look at, for our patients in our health report, we look at a lot of sleep genetics, and some of them specifically are around that, alterations in circadian rhythm and cancer risk. And so, especially for people who are at higher risk for that, then maybe it does make sense to be more proactive.
Yeah, definitely.
Wow. Well, I just love your perspective. I'd love to hear if you can share what, since you're an open book and you want to share with everyone what you've learned, what does a day in your life look like right now? You're, weeks out from the CrossFit Games. You're at the peak of training. What are the things that you're doing from, sleep, nutrition, recovery, training that are typical for you?
You want the whole thing?
Oh yeah, let's go for
The whole thing. All right. So
it.
I will start the night before. So I try to go to bed 10. 10's
Okay.
probably realistic.
Yeah.
9 would be better, but Cass gets home at like 7:38, and I try to like hang out with
At least
her
see her. Yeah.
a little bit before I go to bed, and then so I wake up around 8. Um, Full glass of water, and some salts, and all the vitamins that Wild
Mm-hmm.
Health told me to take. Feed my dog, start my coffee, have all of the nutrition that's dialed in by Wild Health. It's literally, you
Mm-hmm.
guys control my life, and it's a good thing. And then I will just like sit with my puppy, who just turned 1 yesterday. He's
Aw.
a huge boy now, 100 pounds, but he's 1.
Oh wow. So he's not just a puppy. Yeah.
No, he's a mastiff, so just a grizzly bear. But I'll sit with him and just have my coffee in the morning, maybe read a little bit, and then I'll drive into the gym, uh, train from 9:30 to 12-ish. I'll eat, get some body work if our body work guys at the gym, train again in the afternoon, and then I'll come home. I usually sauna at night.
Mm,
I just got one of those Sisu saunas. I'm actually looking at it
nice.
right now,
Nice.
which has been a lot of fun. And actually, my genetics for you guys are like great for sauna. So that's kind of a cool thing. There's a lot
There
of
you
bro
go.
science out there that's like sauna's good, ice is good. And I'm like, yeah, but like get your genes tested and might not actually be good. So it's great for me. So I'll do that.
Hmm.
I, I like it a bit later. It just gives me time to like between my last session
Hmm.
to cool down again before I
Yeah.
get in the sauna. And then it's closer to bed anyways, which is what was suggested that I do. So I sleep a bit harder,
Hmm.
which has been awesome. And rinse and repeat. And that is CrossFit Games training. And
That's
there's a
it.
whole lot of training in that time
In
that I'm
in
awake,
those training periods, a
but
whole
and a
lot of
whole
stuff.
lot of food. But that's pretty much that's it. I call it monk life, which
Yeah.
I love. It's just so
Yeah.
simple and it's very objective and
Hmm.
um yeah, I got 5 more weeks of that monk life and
That's
get to go to the show.
it's exciting. And then it makes it all worth it when you get there and you know you've put in the work and you're ready to go. So that's
Absolutely.
awesome. That's awesome. Any if you could pick three things that you do now that you wish you would have known about or you wish you would have done back in 2013 or 14 or even back when you were playing soccer, what are those things?
Back when I was playing soccer, I wish I I wish I was as hard of a worker then as I am now.
Mm.
And in that, from that standpoint, because I thought I was always, and I probably was relative to my teammates, doing the most like fitness and training and stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
there's always like what I learned now. There's always a little bit more you could do. I could have had better
Sure.
nutrition. I could have like not been a college kid and like party and do all that
Enjoy life.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I think there's value there too. But
Sure.
um, yeah, I think that. You there? My phone just
Well, there we go.
cool. Um, so as a soccer player, I think that like having that discipline that I
Mm-hmm.
have now then
Mm-hmm.
probably would have been advantageous and maybe made that like pro opportunity a little better, but hindsight's 2020.
Sure. What do you think has helped
Um,
you with that now? I mean, I know you train now with the best, and
yeah,
obviously environment. I'm sure seeing what other people do and having that positive environment makes a big difference.
yeah, yeah, definitely. I've learned a lot just from being around T and Shane and Brooke and Saxon and Street and Colty and Sid and like all these games athletes that I've just it's lucky to be able to pull from all of them. All of them are
Yeah.
great at different things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that they would say the same, like everybody can give to the culture in a different way. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm just aware of like little habits that I can pick up or little things that I could help them with. And it's a healthy environment from that standpoint. But just speaking to like T and Shane, it's and like the greatest to have done our sport,
Mm-hmm.
you there is a healthy demand of excellence that I like to
Mm-hmm.
be around. And I think I've always had a little bit of that in me, just like playing high level soccer. It's like very similar, right? You're
Yeah.
striving. Obviously, I didn't play like the best soccer players in the world, but I've been in professional environments where like, people are getting paid to
Mm-hmm.
play a sport other than
Mm-hmm.
CrossFit. And I would say it's harsher in that world relative to other camps that I've been in CrossFit,
Mm.
where there is an expectation and we're going to stick to that.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that. You can pull that energy and you just get more out of your own training.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think the whole camp has absorbed that to an extent. Obviously, everybody has their own journey and their own processes, but we all have grabbed like little things. And I think
Sure.
it helps elevate all of us if you allow it to. And I think that perspective is one that's growing in the camp. It's something that I've practiced for a long time, and I think that the others would too. I guess we haven't like sat and chatted about this directly, but
Mm-hmm.
uh, it helps to have really good training partners.
Totally. Totally. That's amazing. Yeah, I think that's something I wish I would have had more during my time. I think I always had great training partners in terms of we had the same coach, we're following the same programming, but to be in person with them on a regular basis and have that interaction, I think is so valuable. For me, it was always like every few months, that we train in person. So it's a little different.
Yeah. Like that
That's awesome.
accountability is something that can't be understated.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
there's just energy. I say like you pull energy from your training partners, and that's a real thing. I think it's important to be able to do it on your own also. Like I like training in my garage solo still. Kind of like keeps you sharp.
Yeah, like the Jason Khalipa, what is Rich doing?
Yeah, like what's
sign in
Rich?
his
Yeah,
garage.
sure. Like it
Yeah.
keeps feed the wolf, right? Like I
Yeah.
think that's important because it is an individual sport,
Mm-hmm.
but
Both are valuable.
both are very valuable.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, I totally hijacked the question. So 3 things that you wish you would have done. So one, it was the work ethic or the excellence that you were striving for. Any others?
Other things that I would change or
Yeah,
wish
things
I
that you
knew,
do now,
knew.
things that you do now that you wish you would have done, 10 years ago.
Yeah, definitely like tracking all my health stuff, not to keep beating a dead horse, but that's so valuable. Like what you put, it matters what kind of gas you put in the tank. And like essentially I'm an F1 car, just a human. And like you gotta make sure everything is aligned. On that note, I think regular body work, even when I thought I didn't need it when I was young and more resilient or just less aware of how I was feeling, I think that having eyes on you that maybe not necessarily like a biomechanist or anything, but like somebody who understands like body movement and any compensation patterns, maybe a little bit more of that could have helped mitigate any other injuries I've had or overused things throughout my career. I've had a ton of injuries. So that more regular body work. And I think just generally be less stressed and just enjoy the process and trust your ability. Cause it's like, obviously you had it, I have it. Like once you make the show, like, and you compete at the highest level, like you have the ability. I understand you have to strive and push yourself, but there's sometimes a stress attached to that mentality that can impede progress and impede your life outside the gym, which will directly impede what happens in the gym. And just respecting that more. And I think that obviously I learned that the hard way just through just getting sick and all these injuries and things like that. But definitely just be a little less stressed, enjoy the process, and have fun with it. Because if you're good at it, you're better at it if you're enjoying it.
If you're enjoying it, absolutely. I just love that. I think that it's just such a life lesson for all of us in every area of life. You want to work as hard as you can work and be the best you can be and always strive to win or strive for that excellence. But sometimes when we get so attached to the outcome, we can actually self-sabotage in a lot of ways, like you said, because we're adding so much stress or pressure that's taking away from us just, letting our natural abilities shine. So I love that. Very cool. Well, thank you so much for sitting down with me, Will. This was awesome. I'm glad we finally, 10 years later, got to actually have a conversation. And, I'll be cheering you on at the games this year. Everybody from Wild Health, I know will, and are just really proud to be part of your support team. So thank you
so much.
That's all for this episode. Thanks everyone for listening. And if you're looking for more, be sure to follow us on social at Wild Health MD and head over to wildhealth.com or wildhealth.com/premium to become a patient and experience precision medicine for yourself.